What is franchise fatigue? Franchise fatigue is the concept that if a movie franchise goes on for too long, people will become bored with it and won't like it anymore. Now, the question is this a real thing? There is evidence to support it, there is evidence against it, but I think the best way to analyze this is to look at some specific movie franchises. Let's start off with one of the most recent ones that I've heard of, what people have begun to refer to as Star Wars fatigue. After the recent release of Solo, Star Wars Story, and its subsequent bad performance at the box office, people have begun to wonder is one a year too many? Do people not really want to have it so often? Is the Star Wars franchise suffering from fatigue? Maybe it is. But let's examine some of the other Star Wars movies that Disney has made. So, for the past 4 years, each have had a Star Wars movie. You had Star Wars The Force Awakens, then Rogue One, The Star Wars Story, and then Last Jedi, and finally Solo. The Force Awakens was the first Star Wars movie in 10 years, and it made over $2 billion. Then, Rogue One made over $1 billion, and so did The Last Jedi. And then, suddenly, Solo underperforms at the box office and even loses money. That is not exactly what I would call fatigue. And it was not because of fatigue, because if this had been because of fatigue, it would have started to set in earlier. Fatigue is not something that just happens like that. This would have not been the first occurrence. It makes no sense that The Last Jedi would make $1.3 billion and Solo like less than $500 million and lose money. Let's look at some other franchises. Let's go to another classic franchise which is experiencing possible fatigue of its own, Harry Potter. I'm talking specifically about the Fantastic Beasts movie, and how Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald has had the lowest box office opening of any Harry Potter movie. And there's like 10 of them now. So, is that fatigue? No, because all the Harry Potter movies have made good money, and so did the original Fantastic Beasts in 2016. So, what happened? I believe that it's sort of the same reason as with Solo. It's because of the movie itself, not because of the franchise. The Crimes of Grindelwald suffered from bad pacing. It just ignored almost any of the progress made by its predecessor, and it did not have a good ending. It's ignored a lot of character arcs. Essentially, the problem was, again, with the movie. Let's look at some others. Particularly a very recent occurrence in the summer box office was with two classic franchises, the X-Men and Men in Black franchises. Let's start with X-Men because that's a bit more infamous right now. The completion of its saga, since now Disney is taking over Fox. It was going to be the last Fox X-Men movie and the end of another era, but it lost so much money, got a very low score on Rotten Tomatoes. Was this because of franchise fatigue? Possibly. X-Men Apocalypse, the movie before it, had not been well received. Well, the movie in the timeline before it, because the movies from the years previous, Deadpool 2 and Logan, had made a lot of money, and Logan had gotten nominated for an Oscar for Best Screenplay. So, not really seeing fatigue there. Now back onto the Men in Black franchise, another box office disappointment of the summer, which I've heard called the summer sequel slump. Men in Black International, the first spin-off in the franchise, it looked like it was actually going to do well. I mean, it had a pretty good cast. Chris Hemsworth, Tessa Thompson, Liam Neeson, and I saw it and it was actually good. I actually liked it. So maybe this is fatigue, but how can it be fatigue if Men in Black hasn't had a movie for like more than a decade? Wouldn't people be excited for another Men in Black movie, or maybe they just don't like that it wasn't with the original Men in Black movie? Maybe they want more Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. Men in Black could be suffering from fatigue, or people just might not want to be seeing more sequels. Now let's move on to the last two examples. The DCEU. The DCU is not suffering from fatigue right now. Actually, it's more suffering from, actually benefiting from, sort of the opposite of fatigue, actually. It's getting better. They're producing better content and making more money. Batman vs. Superman, well, it did make money. It was not well received, and then Justice League, horribly failed, losing $100 million and being horribly reviewed. Although Wonder Woman did make a lot of money, so maybe not quite fatigue. Again, problem with the movie. And then you have Aquaman. Now, Aquaman is great, and it made over $1 billion. The first DC movie to do that, actually. And then we have Shazam, which also made money and was pretty good. So, is this fatigue? Seems to be the opposite. Now we move on to the final example that we are looking at today. Marvel Cinematic Universe. The fact that this exists is sort of proof that franchise fatigue is not a thing. Because 22 movies over the past 11 years. None of them have ever lost money. In fact, this year alone, 2019, Marvel movies have made a combined more than $5 billion. That's more money than Disney spent on Marvel. Franchise fatigue a thing? Based on the evidence? I'd have to say that it's not. Maybe they should just try and improve some of the movies themselves.